Hey guys, I'm the Philosopher, and welcome to another episode of FGC Philosophy. This is where I help you guys level up inside and outside the virtual arena by having guests on the show talking about different topics that I think are relevant. Today, we got a person who is going to be, hopefully, I'll see more and more of this person. I met him once already at Michigan Masters, which I didn't remember that. And I feel like a jerk. Well, I did remember it, but I didn't realize it was the same person. But yeah, he has his own tournament coming up in the next month. It's June right now, the end of June into July, June 30th and July 1st is ComboCon. So I'm super excited to learn more about that. The first question I have to ask, well, first off, welcome to the show and thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been a long time coming. I'm glad to be a part of this, being face to face with one of the cool YouTubers of the day in the FGC. If you haven't already, I'll do you a solid like, comment, and subscribe. So,
Hey, thank you. I appreciate that. So I gotta ask, the origin story. I don't know too much about the history of what you've been doing before that, but what kind of led up to where you are now?
well, this is actually our second. We had one last year in later July, but it all started with the charity organization that I represent, that ComboCon is for, the Veterans of Foreign Wars. And in order to get ourselves out there and become like, I don't know, because I'm among Korean War and Vietnam veterans, and me myself, I'm an Afghanistan campaign veteran. I wanted to try and expand and go out and make it seem like, oh, we're not just a bunch of old farts sitting in a hall drinking beer complaining. So in order to do that, I figured, well, when I was in the service, video gaming was one of the big things. And with that, I was like, all right, let's start doing video game events. Let's see how that goes. So we did a Pokemon Smash night, we did a Marvel night, and just small little shows, and it got pretty big, and we developed a following. And then it reached that pinnacle where at last year's Michigan Masters in 2017, I met up with some of the key players in the FGC, Jay, Aaron Baker, Aaron Sloan, a lot of the key players among Traverse City, Grand Rapids, Detroit. And I mentioned I want to go bigger, I want to go more grander, and if it's at all involved with my charity, even better. And they mentioned they wanted to do something that would be sort of in the center of the state, in which we are, because the event's going to be held in St. John's, a place not many people realize, but not many people know of or realize. It's about 15 minutes north, but it's loads of fun. And last year went off great. We had about 300 people in attendance, people who just came in wondering what was happening, and a lot of people who were from the FGC from the previous year's Michigan Masters coming to this year's. They just heard, oh, we want to support charity. And with that, they had loads of fun. They couldn't believe that something like this could come to St. John's, a lot of the local people. And from there, it took off and it became a brand. We already got renowned and known as Michigan's hottest up and coming convention. I've been invited personally to a lot of different places because they caught wind of our events and our organization. And so much so that our post fell in love with it, because trying to convince a bunch of Korean War and Vietnam veterans to believe in video games and all that stuff, they didn't know what was happening. And so when ComboCon rolled around, they're expecting, oh, a bunch of 6 to 16-year-olds coming in, playing and all that stuff. And then people like us come by, compete, win lots of money, win prizes, and have that prestige behind it, blew their minds. And because of that, they were like, all right, we believe in ComboCon. And because of that, that's why we're here.
I love hearing stuff like that. It's really interesting, and I'm curious to know, what was the feedback from the veterans when you actually like had conversations following up the first ComboCon?
Well, in regards to conversations with, like, especially my membership, they just couldn't believe how organized it was, how legitimate it was. They like, because unfortunately the stigma among the FGC, like focused on video games, is it's a child's thing. It was, of course, one of those things. Oh, it's available on Toys R Us. Oh, any system's a Nintendo, whether it's a PlayStation or an Xbox. So we've all been there. But after seeing this, it changed a lot of people's opinions on it, because in St. John's, there's relatively nothing in regards to that. That's why when people came by that were local, like, they were basement kings, so they're king of their own domain, and they were probably the best amongst their friends. But when it came to that, they opened up new doors. There was a lot more interactions with people. And amongst the veterans community, like where I'm representing, where I kind of bridge between the two worlds, it was a nice change of pace for them, because people were like, oh, what does the Veterans of Foreign Wars do? And why would they be interested in something like ComboCon or the FGC in general? So it was nice to bridge that gap between both, because even right now, one of the biggest outlets for people in the veteran community, especially modern era vets, like I'm talking Iraq and Afghanistan and current, is video gaming. One of those portable TV and console things is probably like the hottest seller at the PX or the Postal Exchange. So it's just one of those things where it helps bridge the gap and get people talking, both on both sides.
I have this conversation a lot with people, to get off topic just a little bit with what you're saying, is that a lot of people still don't understand the level of influence that competitive gaming has. It's a multi-million-dollar industry now, and not just fighting games, but in general. This is going to be in the Olympics soon. We have things like the Challenger on TV, like TBS. I think we've been on ESPN before for Evo. So it's fighting games alone are growing and starting to get televised. So it's always fascinating hearing that conversation. But also the fact that video games are a great sense or source of relief, and a great source to let out your frustrations and all these other things. And like you, I have friends that are veterans. I'm not one myself. And there's a lot of bonding, and you kind of, from my perspective, what I see is a sense of brotherhood that you don't get. The military, I'm sure, is very different, but I've had my own sense of brotherhood with people who are in the military, and it's a very great bonding feeling to know someone has your back online, or even in a team game offline. It's a very great bonding situation. I wonder, from being a veteran, what's your feedback with the whole bonding experience of having a community to go to after the military?
Oh, 100%. It's one of those things where even when you're in and you're not in, it's one of those bridges that can be able to connect each other. And there's a quote that happened a couple of Evos ago, and I forget who said it, and he won an Evo tournament, is video games are great. And it just resonates. And that's all he had to say. And then the commentators were crying and all that stuff, because it's so simple, yet it's 100% honest and accurate. It's one of those things that can bridge cultures, like people in the United States, Mexico, Japan, China, Korea. It can span across the globe. It can literally be described as a universal language. And fighting games is one of those things where you can put conflicts aside and leave it on the pads or leave it on the stick. And in the end, you can put GGs all around. But in the end, it's one of those things that brings us together, whether it's through friendly rivalries in general. But it's one of those things that can put us together. And amongst the veterans community, even in and out, it's just a simple way to just get to know each other better. Like, oh, you like Street Fighter? I like Street Fighter too. Like, here's our backgrounds, that type of thing. We might not 100% agree, like the policies or the politics outside of which, but it's one of those things that can bring us together wholeheartedly. And that's why I try and represent with my event in general. And that's why I think fighting games in general brings out of people.
Definitely agree. And that leads me to another question is where did your passion for fighting games come from? Where did that start?
Oh, it went back ages and ages. Like gaming in general, it started me going to my nanny and papa's house, playing on the Nintendo Classic, Super Mario Brothers. And then from there, I would say that my true fighting game, like, I don't know, the fighting game seal being broken, started with Killer Instinct Golden on Nintendo 64. Not a game that not many people realize, but Nintendo 64 was my baby. And then from there, it developed into Mortal Kombat 4, and then Clay Fighter 63 in the third. Yeah, I know, pulling that from nowhere. And then it just evolved into different sort of fighting games where I never realized how much I truly enjoyed it at the time. Weapon Lord, that's another one too. Like cult, I don't know, they could be considered cult classics or forgotten retros, but it's one of those things where it just carries over and it grows with you. So when I heard that, oh, Deadly Alliance is coming out, oh, that's the sequel to 4. I love playing 4. I know, looking back on it, it seems completely different, but it's just one of those things that keeps evolving and you grow with the community. Like you start out with 4 and then Nintendo 64, and now we're almost to MK11. Like it's one of those things where if you hook yourself up to a franchise, you literally grow with that franchise. And that's how I feel like I've gone into it, and I'm still a fan to this day.
Let's talk a little ComboCon. So you've already got one under your belt. At this point, maybe you know a little bit more about things to look out for. But what should we expect from at ComboCon?
One of the big things is, and this is what I get a lot of surprises from, and especially last year. Last year we had a special guest come on, and it was Kira Buckland, who people might know nowadays as Falk from Street Fighter V Arcade Edition. She came by before she was announced as my special guest because Nier Automata was one of the hottest items. And the first thing that she said right when we drove into St. John's is like, there's a lot of farm here because it's not one of the big urban areas. There's no skyscrapers. There's no hustle and bustle urbanite cities or anything. It's just out there, and it's real, and it's just down to earth. And so when people come in, they're not expecting like a big, like huge arena or anything. It's just at our VFW hall. Everything's held inside. Last year, like I said, we had about 300 people. It's very down to earth. A lot of things are community contributed, such as setups and consoles and whatnot. We encourage bring your own setup a lot, and it is like heavily influenced by the community. So when it rolled around last year, what people were surprised with is how cozy it can be, yet how it seems like it's necessary, especially for our area, because in our hall we can fit about 400 people plus. And so when people were there, were like, oh, this could be something. And from there, I learned like different places to set up, like cabs, different places to set up our vendors and artist alley. And it was a learning experience. It was a success, but it was definitely a learning experience. And thanks to my TOs for helping me organize this. Like I couldn't have done without them. And it's one of those things I'm happy to have them involved with as well.
You said you learned a lot. What were some of your main takeaways from doing this event?
One of the biggest things is just time management for certain games, playing the crowd to certain games, and structuring structuring the environment in general for higher quality of life. We didn't expect such a big turnout, but then again, we were happily and pleasantly surprised. And it's just something that I know how to personally tackle and how to evolve this time, because last time we were really focused on the environment aspect, but now we know better on how to control it. So that's one thing we learned on.
Okay. Is there anything you plan on doing differently this time around?
Oh yes, we're expecting more people. That's the big thing. And with that, we're actually gonna stream the event, which we tried to do last year, but our internet, our VFW hall existed in 1945, and we're on the outskirts of town. We're not really the most up to date in regards to things. I'm trying to change that. As being the commander of the post, I want to modernize everything, get things into the forefront while still paying respects to tradition. And with that, because of one of the sponsors that we have, our local Sprint store, they're going to bring their hardest core router and booster. And I have a streamer, Matchstick Melee, awesome guy. He's doing this like relatively for free. And he's traveling a couple hours to be here to help stream. And that's one of the big things I want to do with the fact that we have special guests coming. We want to get this out there to the world, make ComboCon known. We might not get to the level of Evo on our second try, but it's to get the word out. And people like, oh, what is ComboCon? Oh, it helps the veterans of Foreign War. What's the veterans of Foreign Wars? It all just comes together. So that's probably like the biggest thing that I want to bring out to people, is to get the word out, get people more interested, prepare for people, prepare for the passion. And if I have to take my lumps to get this off the ground, I'll be willing to do that.
All right. So if you have people going from a far distance traveling to this location, are there any kind of venue situations, or what kind of hotel arrangements do they have for that?
And that's one of the big things I learned from last year is since this event is probably going to get fairly big, and we got people from traveling all over Traverse City, Grand Rapids, Detroit. I got people coming from Chicago, like Montreal, obviously, and LA. I was like, I need to have a central spot for people to meet up. So because of that, once again, when I was pounding pavement, I had to look for hotels that are in the area. And thankfully, one of the people that offered their hotel was the Sleep Inn of Dewitt. If you're traveling long distance and want to be there for both days, Sleep Inn of Dewitt is helping us out. I'll pretty sure the link will be down in the description below. But if you want to organize a whole trip and I'll organize a whole stay for this event, contact the Sleep Inn of Dewitt. We have a special promotion going on. If you call in and say, I want to make a reservation and I'm going to ComboCon, they will give you an exclusive discount rate that will only be available to those coming and participating in our event. So I'm glad and happy that I made that connection with those people for a hotel stay. Sleep Inn of DeWitt.
So I have to ask, like, how do you go about acquiring, your sponsors, like the Sprint? Is there a story behind that, or how did that come to be?
A lot of it is just pounding pavement. And like I said, I'm amongst Korean War and Vietnam veterans, very few Afghan and Iraq veterans. So a lot of it is just me, myself, pounding pavement and driving the miles, getting the sponsorships. There's a couple days where I would travel like 50 miles from here in St. John's to Lansing to DeWitt, all across like the Tri-County area just to get sponsors. And as of right now, we've got about 9, including our streamer, because he deserves that recognition. And it's just basically just saying, hey, this is what we are. This is what we do. I know it sounds different, but there is an audience for this. And it seemed relatively easier this time around because we ourselves are established. Last year, we had about 8 sponsors, and that for them it was a gamble. They just knew, hey, this helps veterans and whatnot, so that's good. I don't know what a ComboCon is. I don't know how fighting games work, but we'll believe in it. And that's why when it came around to this, a lot of our familiar sponsors that are sponsoring this event, they're aware of what this is, and they're aware of how big this can be because we're an established name by this point. And if it goes well this year, we're basically a brand, and I could not be any more pleased or happy with myself in regards to that.
One, I want to take a moment to just like point this out to listeners and maybe even yourself, but like the fact that you live in an area like St. John's, I hadn't heard of it until ComboCon.
Mm-hmm.
One of the biggest complaints, or the biggest complaint that I hear a lot of times is that they live in an area where there's not a lot of people or there's not a big city. This seems to be the case with you.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow you manage to do what you're doing now.
Mm-hmm.
And so like to kind of jump out of interview mode and just like kind of get on the soapbox for like a second. I hear this so often, and I encourage people, but I don't have what you have, so it's harder for me to say it, and you're doing it, so that's really impressive, and I think you should celebrate that. But I also want to encourage other people who are in a similar position that want to do what he's doing, to go out and do that. Because it's completely possible. It might be hard. Obviously, like you just heard him talking about pounding the pavement, going door to door, basically like B2B, business to business, essentially. Doing skills probably maybe in or out of his comfort zone, learning new skills, wearing different hats. That's awesome, and we need more of that within the FGC to have the FGC grow. So I'm going to hop back off my soapbox.
Support your local FGC. That's as quick and as honest as you can be. And that's one of the big things. And like, to get on my thing about it, that's kind of why I started this too. And that's why I mentioned it to a lot of people from Grand Rapids, Traverse City, Detroit, Chicago. I got some people from Windsor coming. And the big thing that they realize is we don't have to travel far, because St. John's is like perfectly in the center. Like, it's a good convergence point, because usually the hot ticket items are in Grand Rapids or Traverse City or Detroit. So everybody has to go long mileage to get there and get there and get there. But we're basically smack dab in the middle, and we're perfect middle ground for everything. So the perfect neutral ground for it. Yeah. So it's just one of those things that, like, for local people, it's great. But for people that have to travel long distances and not have to go as far, it's even better for them. So that's why I'm kind of appreciative about this type of event.
Yeah, definitely. You're like an hour and a half away from me. You're closer to me than Detroit. Grand
Yeah.
Rapids is the only closer place to you.
Hmm.
So that's really awesome to have one more area that's actually closer than Detroit to go to. So that's exciting for me personally over here in Kalamazoo. Slowly trying to build our FGC, 1 week at a time.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, that's great. So that leads me back into the question of advice for people. They're like, I want to throw an event like you. I want
Hmm.
to do what you're doing. You did ComboCon last year. Obviously, you're doing it again, and hopefully, you'll do it again next year, and so on. What advice would you have to someone that's never thrown an event that seems very passionate about doing this?
Well, the big thing I learned is keep building your audience. One event that I had, we had maybe about a dozen people. This was before we had ComboCon, and then the next time it was about maybe 15. But the thing is, perform the event like you're doing it for thousands of people. Treat everybody like they're one of the greatest audience members that you've ever seen. And even though it's like 10 or 6 people, perform or do like you're doing it for hundreds. So from there, you'll develop a passionate fan base and you'll develop a following. And from then, they'll tell two friends, and then they'll tell two friends. And then the way that how I got it was then you get invited to a different event, where for me it was like the big coming out was me going to Michigan Masters last year. That's where I learned the whole tricks of the trade and how everything is done to keep the cogs going. And from there, just get your names out there. It was like, oh, we're still starting out. We're working on a bigger thing, and it's basically it's not what you can know, it's who you can know. So the big thing is network yourself, like learn from people, take advice. The one thing that you can never stop doing is never stop learning and never stop gaining knowledge, because it's one of those things, whether you have $100,000 or $100 in your bank account, money can go, but knowledge is one of those things that are hard to get rid of. So you have to be willing to take your lumps, be ready for those small time events, but also be ready for like, and just treat it like it's one of those grand events. Make your own Evo. It might, because Evo wasn't this big of scale that it is now. It started out small and then it gained traction. So become your own Evo.
Something else that you pointed on that is really relevant is networking, or
Mm-hmm.
who you know. And I'm curious to know from your perspective, not just having people come to your event, but what has been your experience, or what advice do you have when it comes to networking and how that can influence your own little sphere?
Basically, like, and this just goes with life in general, don't be afraid to shake people's hands. Introduce yourself. Just say, hi, I'm Hunter, I'm from St. John's, I throw my own thing. Like, what brings you here? Where are you from? What do you like? What fighting game? What's your favorite fighting game? That type of thing. Just slowly just developing that common interest and that common ground, and then building off of it, and just developing a dialogue. Because I mean, shoot, just like what we had before, like, oh yeah, we did meet at Michigan Masters. We talked about Mortal Kombat for a little bit, that type of thing. Just developing that connection with people. And it might not seem like a lot of effort. A 2 minute conversation can go long ways with people, because you'll develop that first contact and you'll develop that relationship, and you can be able to roll it from there. And like a year from now, you'll be like, hey, I met you at that last event, and I'm here at your event. So oh, that's awesome, you can make it, let's roll off of this and let's get a set going, that type of thing. So it's just, don't be afraid to make the connections with people, and don't, and have a good handshake, basically.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Yeah, kind of to add on to that, I agree 100%. That's something that I've been doing recently, and ever since I've been doing that online and offline, like
Hmm.
one, Twitter is like your best friend if you're in the FGC. Just DM people if their
True.
DMs are open, or tweet at them, and try to just check in on them regularly while being respectful.
Yeah.
It goes a long way. But to your point though, talking to people and having these conversations, there's so many opportunities that I've been given and have coming up that wouldn't have happened if I just chatted with people. I'm an awkward person. I'm okay with that. Like, sometimes you kind of, and let me know you point on this as well. But I'm okay with being awkward and weird. But I just walk up to people and I just have a conversation and let there be space for it to be awkward. Usually it doesn't go that way, or if it does, then I'm cool with it and I just don't pay attention to it anymore. But I have these relationships with, like, A Bake and Jay and IO and all these people now within the Michigan FGC. just because I talked to them, I reached out to them, they reached out to me, and I reciprocated that and tried to help them out when I could. And maintaining those relationships, it's in my opinion, in my experience, it's been super impactful. So I'd love to know, if you have any feedback on that as well.
No, it's 100% true. It makes sense. Like once you develop that relationship with people, like just don't be a dick about it. Like, oh, I'm going to talk to you when I need it or when I need a favor done. No, like, hey, you just got out of having surgery. Hey, how are you doing? That type of thing. Like, actually be a good person. It's not that hard. And when you develop that relationship with people, it does blossom and it does become a really good friendship. Like you have your FGC friends, and then it's just one of those groups that like, hey, if anything's happening or you're in the loop, you got it back. And that's why like Facebook groups like the Michigan FGC general discussion, or like local chapters like the Traverse City or the Grand Rapids or Detroit or anything like that, you have your inner community. And with that, like if you're not posting regularly or you mention something weird in regards to a post, people get concerned. And so it's just one of those things where with the power of networking, you develop more of a professional relationship, because in gaming, it's hard to sway the line between business and like friendship wise. Like it always rides that line where you can be professionally a friend, it seems like. And so when you maintain that, where you're like, hey, I'm interested in throwing casuals, is anybody interested? And then you put it out there, he's like, I can't make it then, but I know a couple of people in the area, so it's that type of thing. And so it's just one of those instances where once you build it, don't stop. Don't be a stranger. Like make sure everything's good once in a while. Just be one of those friends. Like, because when you're in networking, especially with the FGC, you're not looking just for business associates. You're not looking just for people like, oh, this guy's good with equipment, that type of thing. And I'll call on him when needed. I'll be the godfather type thing. I'll call you on for a specific favor. But no, it's just one of those things where you're building that relationship with them. So.
Yeah, definitely agree. And something that I subscribe to, I know that people have different beliefs, but as a business owner, and just from studies that I've learned from other entrepreneurs, and then also doing it myself, offering certain services for free, or just helping people, rather than always expecting help and networking just for the sake of networking, I find takes you so much further than any other like route that you can go.
Yeah, that's 100%. As long as, like, if you're just stone face, oh, everything's by the numbers type thing. Like, if you offer, like, hey, if anybody's willing to help, I'll give you a T-shirt, that type of thing. Like, just let them know that the things they do are drastically appreciated, and just a simple thank you, or a simple like, do you need any help with any type of thing? Like, is there anything I can offer in order to like help move the process along or help you get off the ground? Just giving that resource to them, because that's the big thing. Whether it's your networking or helping somebody out, you're basically saying, hey, I'm a resource for you to have, and I'm willing to help you out, and I don't expect anything in return. But if you do something like as a thank you, that's greatly appreciated. And hey, since you thanked me in whatever way you could, I'll be willing to help you out again, that type of thing. It'll be a lot more easier for that type of thing.
Definitely agree. Have you ever played a game called Harvest Moon?
I have.
Okay, so I have an odd analogy, and I've wanted to talk about this for years, and I'll share it with you, and then you can let me know if you disagree, agree, or whatever. But I believe that social interactions, whether it be business or friendships, are very much like social interactions in Harvest Moon. You engage them first, you listen to their story, how their day is going, and you learn what they like, and you give them what they like every now and then, and you remember special events. That is how you acquire hearts, basically, in Harvest Moon. That is exactly how it works with business interactions, online social media interactions, and friendship interactions. You will gain friendship points with that individual if you just talk to them, listen to them, not just talk at them, because the Harvest Moon character never talks. He always listens and says like yes or no questions, but it's super effective. You hear their story, you learn their birthdays, you give them what they like, and you're good. So what do you think of that?
That's 100% more accurate than people realize. And that actually makes me think of something like, are you familiar with the Persona series at all?
Yeah.
Okay. So typically, and it's not really spoilers for anything because this really runs from like Persona 3 to 5. Like you're just a student going out and about, but you can do whatever you want in the day. But one of the options you have is to perform certain social links with people. And the more you meet them, the more power ups you get for your social link, the more higher your charisma gets or what have you. Mm-hmm. And in the end, let's call the final boss in this case ComboCon for this instance. You build your social links with the people that you meet, and you check on them, make sure that they're all doing well and everything's going well. You be a good friend to them. So when the final boss finally comes up and you're down on the floor, like, oh no, how am I supposed to combat this special boss? And all of a sudden your persona cards coming up with all the people that you maxed throughout the time you've been there, and they help you defeat that final boss. And so it's just one of those things that, like, connections are great because they make things easier for you in the long run. Like, that might sound like bad in certain eyes, like, oh, you're using people to make things easier for you to like, but no, it's many hands make light work. Simple as that. And when you reach those bonds with people, when you earn those little hearts, things grow, things prosper, and you become like a better person out of it because you never stop learning from those who have that experience.
Perfect. I think that's a great note to end this on. The last question that I have to ask is, obviously we know what you got going on. Where can they find you if they want to reach out to you or learn about more on your event?
If you have any questions or concerns, hit me up on Twitter. It's at HDMEXIQTIONER. There's a long boxing story behind that one, but it's HD Mexecutioner. Or you can hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/ComboCon. And I know we haven't talked about this yet, but the special guests I have coming down, we are having a hardcore charity exhibition between two of the FGC's most well-known characters. We got ourselves Unruly from Yo Video Games and Wooly from Super Best Friends Play and Wooly Versus. They're going head-to-head, 3 different games. Their personal picks. For example, Kenny is taking on Wooly in Mortal Kombat 9. That's his pick for a game. And then Wooly's pick for the game is Street Fighter 4 Ultra. It's best of 5. It's first of 5 for each game, and then the house game. And then from there, it's best 2 out of 3, and winner walks out the ComboCon champion.
Hey, all right. That's exciting. Oh man, I want to check that out. What day, do you know what day that's going to be on?
The charity exhibition is going to be on Sunday, July 1st, after all the main tournaments are done. And to name off a few tournaments that we're having, if it's all right, we got ourselves Super Smash Bros. Melee, Under Night in Birth XC, King of Fighters 14. Yes, that's true. Guilty Gear Xrd Revelator 2, Tekken 7, our mystery tournament, which is going to be mad hype. I know what it is. So if you're at all interested, come on by. This is all on Saturday. And our main event, Dragon Ball Fighter Z, and that's all on Saturday. Now on Sunday, we have ourselves Mortal Kombat XL, Street Fighter Third Strike, Skullgirls, Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. It's making a resurgence, and it starts here. Injustice 2, Blaze Blue Cross Tag Battle, Street Fighter 5 Arcade Edition, and of course, our charity exhibition between Wooly and Unruly.
Yo, that's gonna be hype. Let's go.
It is. It's gonna be mad hype.
Is there anything else that we also forgot that's gonna be at this event that you want to bring up?
We're gonna have all sorts of vendors in the area, whether it's through comic books, anime, and we're having our artist alley. A lot of local artists that are going to come on by, display their wares. A lot of them do commissions, so that's one of the best things. And we're also going to have a cosplay contest on Sunday, so we're going to be calling it our cosplay of the day. Winner gets a prize. We're going to be selling t-shirts, all sorts of memorabilia. First 150 people through the door get a exclusive ComboCon lanyard, only available for a limited time. Other than that, it's just a simple wristband, so it's not too bad.
So what kind of organizations or sponsors do you want to give a shout out to while you're here?
Well, ComboCon is a lot about community. And with that, I'd like to thank these sponsors that believe in this community and believe in this type of event. Because unlike last year, we're established, but the year before that, we weren't. And so it takes a lot to believe in this type of event. And with that, I'd like to thank our sponsors, the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 4113, our hosts, my post that believe in this project. Cyberpunk Studios, Larry Cushion Trophies and Engraving, we're sponsoring the trophies and the prizes for the event. Custom Embroidery Plus are helping out with shirts. Chucky D's Barbecue, if you're in for some food action, we have a barbecue food truck outside. Michigan Graphics and Signs for all the banners and signs that they're making for us. Sundance, Buick, and GMC. Agro Liquid and Matchstick Melee for the streaming services he's providing. Thank you all, because without you guys, none of this would be possible.
That's a good list right there. Nice. All right. I like it.
Yeah, they helped out a lot, and I'm so excited for it.
Cool. Actually, follow-up question. How are you on volunteers? Do you have, like, you need people to reach out to you for volunteers, things like that?
If you're into volunteering, feel free to hit me up on Facebook, facebook.com/ComboCon if you're interested. Mainly it's just if we do need some. Other than that, the volunteers that we do have coming by are actual veterans that are part of our post. So people like from Vietnam or Korea or from the modern age, they're actually going to be donating their time and hoping that this event goes off without a hitch. And that means a lot, because a lot of them don't know what the hell's going on at this convention, but hey, everyone's having a good time and we're happy for that. So that's their whole mindset for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me. This has been a great conversation. I'm excited. I'm going to be there. So if you guys are watching this video before ComboCon, definitely come by, say hi to me, say hi to Hunter. Super excited about this. So thank you guys so much. Of course, hit that like button if you like this video. Leave a comment down below. Let us know if you're going to ComboCon. If you already went and this is after the fact, then let us know what you thought of it. And then, as always, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one.